Well, good morning, my friends. Hope you've had a lovely weekend. Good to see you this morning, and thank you for joining us for our Bible reflection for today. And today we're working our way through the fantastic book of 1 Samuel. Great narrative going on here, great story. And today we're in chapter 9 and enter a man called Saul. Here we go, 1 Samuel chapter 9. There was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, son of Zeror, son of Bekorah, son of Aphiah, a Benjaminite, a man of wealth. He had a son whose name was Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. He stood head and shoulders above everyone else. Now the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, had strayed. So Kish said to his son Saul, "Take one of the boys with you and go look for the donkeys." He passed through the hill country of Ephraim and passed through the land of Shalishah, but they did not find them. And when they passed through the land of Shaalim, but they were not there. Then he passed through the land of Benjamin, but they did not find them. When they came to the land of Zuph, Saul said to the boy who was with him, "Let us turn back, or my father will stop worrying about the donkeys and worry about us." But he said to him, "There's a man of God in this town. He is a man held in honor. Whatever he says always comes true. Let us go there now. Perhaps he will tell us about the journey on which we have set out." Then Saul replied to the boy, "But if we go, what can we bring the man? For the bread in our sacks is gone, and there's no present to bring to the man of God. What have we?" The boy answered Saul again, "Here, I have with me a quarter shekel of silver. I'll give it to the man of God to tell us our way." Formerly in Israel, anyone who went to inquire of God would say, "Let us go to the seer," for the one who is now a prophet was formerly called a seer. Saul said to the boy, "Good, come, let us go." So they went to the town where the man of God was. As they went up the hill to the town, they met some young girls coming out to draw water and said to them, "Is the seer here?" They answered, "Yes, there he is, just ahead of you. Hurry, he's just now come to the town because the people have a sacrifice today at the shrine. As soon as you enter the town, you will find him before he goes up to the shrine to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, since he must bless the sacrifice. Otherwise those eat who are invited. Now go up, for you will meet him immediately." So they went up to the town. As they were entering the town, they saw Samuel coming out towards them on his way up to the shrine. Now the day before Saul came, the Lord had revealed to Samuel, "Tomorrow, about this time, I will send to you a man from the land of Benjamin, and you will anoint him to be ruler of my people Israel. He shall save my people from the hand of the Philistines, for I have seen the suffering of my people, because their outcry has come to me." When Samuel saw Saul, the Lord told him, "Here is the man of whom I spoke to you. He it is who shall rule over my people." Then Saul approached Samuel inside the gate and said, "Tell me, please, where is the house of the seer?" Samuel answered Saul, "I am the seer. Go up before me to the shrine, for today you shall eat with me, and in the morning, and I will let you go and tell you all that is on your mind. As for your donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, give no further thought of them, for they have been found. And on whom is Israel's desire fixed, if not you, and on all your ancestral house?" Saul answered, "I am only a Benjaminite, from the least of the tribes of Israel, and my family is the humblest of all the families of the tribe of Israel. Why then have you spoken to me in this way?" Then Samuel took Saul and his servant boy and brought them into the hall and gave them a place at the head of those who had been invited, of whom there were about 30. And Samuel said to the cook, "Bring the portion I give you, the one I asked you to put aside." The cook took up the thigh and went up with it and set it before Saul. Samuel said, "See what was kept is set before you. Eat, for it is set before you at the appointed time, so that you may eat with the guests." So Saul ate with Samuel that day. When they came down from the shrine into the town, a bed was spread for Saul on the roof, and he lay down to sleep. At the break of dawn, Samuel called to Saul upon the roof, "Get up, so I may send you on your way." Saul got up, and both he and Samuel went out into the street. As they were going down to the outskirts of the town, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the boy to go on before us, and when he's passed on, stop here yourself for a while, so that I may make known to you the word of God." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, so where we got to. Samuel, his sons had gone astray and they weren't going to become, God wasn't happy about them becoming judges over Israel. So the people of God asked for a king, and reluctantly, I think personally, because I think Samuel felt spurned on behalf of his sons, and I think spiritually, because I think he felt hurt on behalf of God. At God's behest, he gives them their what they want. Give the people what they want, as they say, and he agrees that there should be a king. Now, at this point, then enter Saul into the story. Now, the problem with Saul is this really. It's hard for me to read Saul because I kind of know what happens in the end, and I know it doesn't end well for Saul. Okay, and it's quite hard to read the story from the beginning without knowing that. Now, why do I say that? Because in a sense, with the Bible, we have the benefit of wonderful hindsight because it was written thousands of years ago. It's because in about 10 days, 12 days time, we're going to be thinking about Good Friday and Easter, about the death and the resurrection of Jesus. And I think sometimes it's a bit too easy sometimes to hear about the death of Christ, but with the shadow of the fact that we know what happens in the end. At the end of the story, and I think if we're not careful, we can lose our impact in that. So I think what I would encourage you to do in the next few days is, firstly, make sure you go to church on Good Friday. A lot of people just go straight from Palm Sunday through to the resurrection, miss out the death of Christ in the middle. But I think it's important that we actually do go to church on Good Friday. Go and experience the passion and the death of Christ and see it anew. And when you do, try and hear it if you like. Try and forget for a bit that you know what happens in the end. Feel what happened, experience what Jesus did for you again, and try and do it without the knowledge, if you like, of the happy ending, and try and see it for what it is and enjoy it for what it is as it is. So in the same way with this story, 1 Samuel, try to read it as it is without knowing that it ends badly for Saul. That's what I've got to do. But also for us all next week, when we're thinking about what Jesus did for the death and resurrection of Christ, try when you experience Good Friday, do so, and try and do it without knowing the happy ending in the end. Okay, so the people of God have asked for a king, and next question is, where's Samuel to find one? And what's quite interesting is that the way Samuel does it is he's praying about it, and God says to him, this time tomorrow, a young man will cross your path, and he's the one it is. And lo and behold, the following day, a young man crosses his path, and Samuel knows that this is the guy. And at one level, in that sense, I would say 3 cheers for Samuel. Samuel has sought the will of God, and he's listened to God, and lo and behold, this young man appears. He takes the will of God seriously, and quite clearly, Samuel acts in accordance with what he believes to be God's will. And so I think that is a positive thing. What I think is interesting, and I think even at this stage, but again, with hindsight, you can kind of see with Saul. On the one hand, yes, God has said this is the person. Also, it is worth saying that Saul comes from the land of Benjamin, which, as we found out at the end of the book of Judges, is a very, very small and downcast tribe, which almost ceased to exist at the end of the book of Judges. So it's the smallest of all the tribes. And so in a sense, God always has a way of picking the weak, picking the most unlikely, as we thought recently about people like Samson, people like Gideon, and so on. God has an amazing way of picking the weak to shame the strong and picking the unlikely. God seems to have a great desire in that. And lo and behold, it's not, with that sense, it's not surprising that God has picked someone from the smallest tribe. God has a way of surprising us. So quite clearly, Samuel felt he was listening to God's will by seeing this young man who appears at the right time. And also, it's not a surprise that God will pick someone from the land of Benjamin, from the tribe of Benjamin. But even at this stage, I think, what is interesting is the characteristics of Saul himself. Saul clearly is a sort of nice young man, and he comes from a nice family. It's quite difficult to tell what kind of character and what kind of steel he has. What does it tell us? It tells us he was a handsome young man. It tells us that he was head and shoulders. He was above everybody else. But even then, I'm reading it and I'm thinking to myself, God does not judge by appearances. God judges by the heart. And even the fact that they're looking at, talking about the fact that he's good looking and the fact that it's kind of not a good sign, is it? And I think he comes from a sort of nice family. I wonder, even at this stage, as to, doesn't say much for his steel and his resilience and his compatibility as a king. So I think even at this stage, it's interesting that the kind of, they're talking about how good looking he is, whereas actually God looks at the heart. There's not much said in here about Saul's prayer life, his ability to sort of use faith in times of difficulty, times of strain. Doesn't say much about his prayer life. It simply says go and see the seer, almost like go and see a fortune teller if you want to know what to do, kind of thing. So it doesn't say much about his personal prayer life. So what I think is interesting here is that they talk about, yes, he is God's person because he appears at the right time. Yes, it's not a surprise that God would pick someone from the smallest tribe. But even now at this stage, you can think, it's got to be more to it than the fact that he's good looking and very tall. That's nice that he's tall and good looking. But actually, as I say, God judges by the heart. And it's surely more about character than about what he looks like. So I think even at this stage, you can see the character of Samuel, which in the end was what led it down, as you will discover in a few days' time. So lots to say in this chapter about the way God chooses. God clearly did choose this guy, Saul. It's quite clear. But I think even at this stage, Samuel should have been talking to Saul, you maybe say, about his character, about his ability to act under faith, about his potential resilience, and so on. So lots to think about there. I hope you found that helpful in the way that God speaks, in the way that God chooses, and the way that God chose, and the way that God chooses, and the way God calls people today. Friends, lots to think about there. Have a lovely day, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your Monday, and God bless.